Good to go.
Buenas noches. Good evening. I am Diane Mason. I work in the Boone County Extension Office, and I'm one of the Family and Consumer Sciences Extension agents. And tonight we're going to explore Spain. I actually house sat for an individual who taught in Spain. Well, he was over there for 3 years, so I house sat for him here. He was actually from Barcelona and taught college over there on the off years, and it was kind of fun to do because when he was home in America, he would cook dinner and those types of things for us. We had a little neighborhood group and we would share cooking duties, and when Jorge cooked, we always had something with the Spanish influence. I also just used his phone, and because it was a wall phone, we didn't have cell phones at that time, and people would call and they would be speaking Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish, and I just sort of said I don't speak Spanish, and I would hang up because it was always an international call, and they don't actually speak Spanish in Barcelona. They speak Catalan, which is a version of Spanish or a dialect of Spanish. So it's quite the adventure, and I had a wonderful time while I was in that arena, but have moved on since then. So tonight we're going to talk about a little bit about Spain. We sent you a little bit of information about the country, and I hope you read through that just to kind of orient you with some of the basic information about the country. Before we get started on my next little topic, if you've not preheated your oven to 350 and you're planning to make the cake that we're making tonight, please turn your oven on. It does make a difference that you put the cake tonight into a hot oven. And then we'll also, if you're making the spinach dish, you'll want to have your spinach thawed. It's probably not terribly important, but it will help when we get ready to do that dish. So we will be making two things tonight if you bought the ingredients for it. The first one is a Tarta de Santiago, which is an almond cake, and it is gluten-free. And so if you have the ingredients for that, we'll be using almond flour and talking about that. And then we're going to make a spinach and chickpea dish, which can be used as a tapa, or it can be used as a side dish, or you can add more liquid to it and make it as a stew. So very healthy. It's spinach and chickpeas, some raisins, tomato sauce. So anyway, that's what we're going to do tonight. But before we go there, I want to share just a little bit of information about the Mediterranean diet. So I guess I also forgot to ask, has anybody been to Spain? If you want to put that in chat. And if you have been to Spain, what area of the country you went to? Anybody has visited Spain?
I've been in Barcelona.
Great. Wow. South of Spain, Barcelona, and Galicia. So many regions. It is a large country, and they're all different. Fantastic. Your family is from there. Madrid and Toledo. I went to Barcelona when Jorge was living in Barcelona. A friend and I went to Barcelona. Oh my goodness, stepdaughter just came back last night from Barcelona. That's fantastic. I was thankful that Jorge met us at the airport when I went to Barcelona, or I would still be standing there trying to figure out what to do. So great. So hopefully some of this information tonight will be interesting for you and maybe bring back some memories if you have been to Spain. So I want to talk just a little bit about the Mediterranean diet, or the Mediterranean way of life.
And then we'll log back in.
Do what?
And make sure YouTube is turned on.
Make sure you're muted, please, if you're not. Thank you.
The Mediterranean diet has proven health benefits, and I'm going to read you a little bit of information here. Shortly after World War II, Ansel Keys and colleagues organized the remarkable 7-country study to examine the hypothesis that Mediterranean eating patterns contributed directly to improved health outcomes. This long-running study examined the health of almost 13,000 middle-aged men in the United States, Japan, Italy, Greece, the Netherlands, Finland, and then Yugoslavia. When the data were examined, it was clear that people who ate a diet where fruits and vegetables, grains, beans, and fish were the basis of daily meals were the healthiest. Topping the chart were residents of Crete, which is part of Greece. Even the deprivations of World War II, and in part, perhaps because of them, the cardiovascular health of Crete residents exceeded that of US residents. And researchers attributed the differences to diet. There have been extensive studies and more work come out of understanding that certain Mediterranean eating patterns were remarkably connected to good health. And it has emerged that the concept of the Mediterranean diet could promote lifelong good health. So hundreds, if not thousands, of other studies have been added to that body of scientific evidence, supporting the gold standard status of traditional Mediterranean diet eating patterns. These show that eating the Med way may lengthen your life, improve brain functions, defend from chronic diseases, fight certain cancers, lower your risk for heart disease, including high blood pressure and bad cholesterol, protect from diabetes, aid in weight loss, keep away depression, safeguard you from Alzheimer's, ward off Parkinson's, improve rheumatoid arthritis, improve eye health, reduce your risk of dental disease, help you breathe better, lead to healthier babies, and lead to improved fertility. So there is a lot of research that has been done on the Mediterranean diet. It still continues today, and Spain is part of the Mediterranean region. It borders the Mediterranean Ocean, and so it is considered part of the Mediterranean region. So if we think about 7 simple steps, and you're going to get a handout on the Mediterranean diet, so you don't have to worry about taking notes or anything. You'll be getting you'll be getting an email with publications on these topics here, either tonight or tomorrow morning. So there are 7 simple steps to eating the Med way. Number 1, change your protein. And when we think about protein, we often think of meat, whether it's pork, beef, those types of things. So what they're suggesting is that you change some of the meat in your diet to plant proteins like beans, nuts, and seeds. Eat fish and seafood 2 to 3 times a week, including fatty fish like mackerel or salmon at least once a week. And even though I'm telling you to eat fish, it doesn't mean that you eat fried fish. So we need to avoid the fried fish. Choose white meat poultry like turkey or chicken breast. Limit your red meat or choose lean red meats, and then greatly limit or eliminate processed meats, things like bologna, hot dogs, luncheon meats in general, bacon, those types of things that have been processed. The second tip of 7 is swap your fats. When possible, choose olive oils. Replace solid fats like butter or margarine with olive oil or canola oil. Use olive oil for cooking or dressings and marinades, and aim to consume at least 4 tables of olive oil per day while staying within your calorie budget. Number 3 is eat more vegetables. Get at least 3 servings or 3 cups of vegetables every day, and choose a variety of colors. And when we're talking about vegetables, we're not talking about French fries. Yes, potatoes are a vegetable, but they're considered a starchy vegetable, and this really is looking at more of the green, orange, yellow, peppers, those types of things, types of vegetables, collards, kale, spinach, chard, turnip greens. To eat more of those types of vegetables is encouraged. Number 4 is eat more fruit. And I'm not talking about apple pie. Yes, that has apples in it, but we'd rather have you eat the apple than the apple pie. Get at least 2 servings or 2 cups of fruits a day. Choose a variety of colors and include berries often. So blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, any kind of berry you can think of. is a great choice as long as it's not loaded down with a lot of sugar. Number 5 is snack on nuts and seeds. Choose at least 3 ounces or little handfuls of seeds a week and keeping within your calorie limit. And when I talk about seeds, try to think of any that just try to watch and try to keep them as natural as possible, like raw pumpkin seeds or raw sunflower seeds, as opposed to those that are coated with oil and a lot of salt, or that are candied or honey roasted. Try to keep them as close to natural as possible. And remember, it's a little hand. It's like the little palm of your hand. It's not, a double handful of seeds or nuts or the whole container. Number 6 is make your grains whole. We talk about this a lot. So eat grains as grains. And when we talk about whole grain, like whole wheat, barley, rye, millet, quinoa, amaranth, there are all kinds of grains. So oatmeal is a great whole grain. Brown rice instead of white rice. Popcorn is wonderful. And look for whole in the first ingredient on ingredient lists for bread. So whole wheat bread or pasta, those types of things. And then number 7 is rethink your sweets to limit your sugar intake. And there's more and more research being done about the effect of sugar on our bodies and on our brains. So choose no more than 3 servings a week of high sugar foods and drinks, and sugar sweetened snacks like candies, desserts, and beverages. And I know we're making a cake tonight, but that could be considered a treat as opposed to a normal everyday meal. And I'm hoping that you don't eat cake 3 times a day, every day. So that's just some basic information about changing your eating habits to the Mediterranean lifestyle. If you have questions or comments, you can put them in the chat box. So I forgot to say this, you're going to get this handout. It's how to taste olive oil. And it also includes information on shopping and tasting the Mediterranean diet. Olive Oil 101 talks about the different flavors you might find in olive oil grades, and then buying and storing it, using it in cooking and baking with olive oil. There's a chart on this particular page that tells you how to substitute olive oil for butter. So you don't substitute it 1 for 1. You use slightly less oil when you're substituting oil for butter. And then you're also going to get a handout that includes all of the 2 complete recipes that we're using tonight, and additional information about Spain and additional recipes. And this is hot off the press. It really came out pretty much yesterday. So you're going to be the first ones to get it. So let's see, I think that's it for the moment. So let's get started on our cake. It is called Tarta de Santiago, or Spanish almond cake. So you'll need a bowl, and you will need a mixer for this. You need 5 eggs, 5 large eggs. You need your sugar, some lemon zest, cinnamon, almond extract, and almond flour or ground almonds. But before we get started, I'm going to show you this. This will be not like your finished product. Yours is going to be better. So this has a cross of St. James on the top of it, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along too. So if you have a springform pan, you'll want to use it. It works much better than any other type of pan. If you don't have a springform pan, it's okay. It just means that you'll probably be serving the cake out of the pan as opposed to taking it out and serving it on a nice serving platter. So there are different types of almond flour that you can buy. You can buy almond, now I forget the name of it. I don't have the package close by. You can buy almond flour that has brown flecks in it that are made from the whole almonds, and the skin, it has been ground up into the flour. Or you can buy blanched almond flour that has been blanched. And that just means that the brown skin has been taken off of it. You can make your own almond flour at home if you have a food processor. The challenge is not taking it all the way to almond butter. And it doesn't take too long to go from ground almonds to almond butter. So you really have to keep an eye on that. If you want to blanch your almonds before you make it into flour, you just bring some water to a boil. You put the almonds, the whole raw almonds in, and let them cook for just a couple minutes. And then when you take them out, the skin will slide right off of the almond. Let them cool, and then you can make your own almond flour. A lot of people will say that the skin is bitter. So it is a consideration if you don't want to have to deal with the bitterness of the almonds, the skins. So we need to take some butter and butter our pan, no matter the kind of pan that you're using. I put a piece of parchment paper in the bottom of my springform pan. If you have that, you can do it. If you don't have it, you'll be fine if you just butter it or spray it with cooking spray. But you want to go all the way up the side of the pan because your cake is going to rise up pretty high. And you just want to lightly butter it all over to keep it from sticking. And I know what I forgot to do. And I'm going to start doing it here now. I moved my cue cards, and I don't know where I moved them from, too. That's not a good thing, is it? I really put them out of the way. All right. So we're going to wash our hands. We're going to grease the pan with butter. And then I need to wash my hands again because I did get grease all over my hands. So. So then you need to zest. We need a teaspoon of zest from a lemon. And you need to wash your lemon before you zest it. And I have a zester and I have a lemon. And I will tell you, a lot of people zest this way, where they put the zester down and they zest down so that the zest goes into something or onto the counter. I tend to run the zester across the top so the zest collects in the zester and I can do something with it when it all gets collected. It's just how I do it. You can do it however you normally do it. But we need about a teaspoon of lemon zest, which is about half of a large lemon. And I'm going to say that's about a teaspoon. That's about a half of my lemon, and that's what I'm going with. So I'm just going to set that aside for right now. I don't need it right now. If I go too fast, you'll have to let me know. A lot of hand washing tonight because we're dealing with eggs and some other things. So I have my pan buttered. I have my lemon zested. And I'm ready to move on to my next step. And my next step is to take a bowl, a mixing bowl. And I'm going to crack 5 eggs into my bowl, but I'm not going to crack them directly into my bowl. I'm going to crack them into a separate bowl. Last night when I was making this cake to bring, I ran into a bad egg. So I was happy that I was cracking eggs into a bowl before I put it into the big bowl. So 5 eggs, one at a time. Eggs at room temperature tend to beat up better than eggs at right out of the fridge. Just FYI. So we're just using whole, large chicken eggs. Going straight into my bowl, or not straight in, I'm going from my breaking bowl into my big bowl. And I get to wash my hands again. Now I have egg all over them. And I'm just going to take my mixer and I'm just going to give these eggs a quick whirl to mix them up before I add the sugar. So a quick mix to mix the egg yolks and egg whites together. Now I'm going to add 1 1/4 cups of sugar to my eggs. And remember, when we measure sugar, that we are spooning the sugar into the measuring cup, leveling it off, and then putting it into our container. I have lumpy sugar because it hasn't been used for a while. So 1 1/4 cups of sugar into the eggs. Now, there is no leavening in this cake, meaning there's no baking powder or baking soda or cream of tartar or anything to help leaven. There's no yeast or anything in this cake. So this step that we're doing now, where we're going to mix the eggs and the sugar, is the only opportunity we have to get leavening. But we can get too much. So when we start mixing this, we want to mix it until you see a few bubbles and it turns pale. Before we go any further, I need to talk more about this recipe because I messed it up. If anybody can, it would be me. So this cake goes together really fast and you have to get it into the oven really fast because if you don't, the ingredients will start separating out and it won't bake properly. And let's see if I can get us a piece and show this by chance. It may not show up. It's not going to. Not going to show up. On the cake that I made yesterday, I did not put it into a preheated oven. I put it into a cold oven, if I remember correctly. I have no idea what I did. I don't remember, other than I made a cake last night. Because I didn't put it into a hot oven that was ready to go, the heavier ingredients started separating from the lighter ingredients. So even though I had mixed it up really well, the heavier ingredients started going to the bottom. And I ended up with a cake that had like a top crust on it, and there was space between the top of the cake where the crust formed and the actual cake. And then there's a demarcation all the way around the cake where the bottom half is darker than the top half. And so that's because the cake sat in the oven and it wasn't hot. It didn't get hot fast enough to start baking, and it had time for the ingredients to start separating out. And that's partly because there's no leavening agent in this cake. We'll give you a tip on how to add leavening if you want to, but we're going to try to do this the traditional and correct way tonight. So we're going to mix this with a mixer until it turns pale yellow and we start to see bubbles. And then we're going to add a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon, 1 to 3 teaspoons of almond extract and our teaspoon of lemon zest. So we need to have all of those ready to go. And then we're going to need 2 cups of almond flour. So we need to have almond extract, cinnamon, lemon zest, and 2 cups of almond flour ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out my almond flour. I'm going to go ahead and measure 1 cup of it so I can have it ready. And we're not going to mix it in with the mixer. We mix it in by hand, but that way it will be ready. And when you measure almond flour, you're going to spoon it in just like you do flour. But one of the keys is that you need to try to be sure you don't get air pockets because it is a little more dense than all-purpose flour, and it can leave some craters in there. So I'm not pushing it into the mixing or into the measuring cup, but I am trying to be sure that I don't have big air pockets in there. So I have 1 cup ready to go, and the other one will come out when we're ready. All of the amounts again are 5 cups of 5 eggs, 1 1/4 cups of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 to 3 teaspoons of almond extract. If you like it really strong, you can use 3. If you like it a little less strong, 1, and 1 teaspoon of lemon zest, and 2 cups of almond flour. So a teaspoon of lemon zest, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of almond extract, and then we're going to use 2 cups of almond flour. We're going to have those all somewhat ready to go. So I'm going to beat my egg and sugar mixture until it's pale and creamy, and I see bubbles, and it changes to a pale yellow. And it doesn't take that long. I'm going to add my cinnamon, my almond extract, and my lemon zest. And I'm going to beat those in with the mixer. Just until they're incorporated. Then I'm going to take my mixer out. And the next steps I do by hand. So I'm going to use a rubber scraper or a spatula. I'm going to fold my flour in. And to fold, you go around the edge of the container and turn from the bottom to the middle. So you're pulling up from the bottom and turning over from the middle while you're sort of going around the edge. You're not beating it. You're trying to maintain that air that you've put in to the eggs. So it's 1 cup, and I need a 2nd cup of almond flour. Remember, I'm scooping it in and then leveling it off. This is a gluten-free cake. I don't know if I said that. I don't remember. So I'm going to turn my 2nd one in. Again, I'm just folding it in, coming up, go around, bring it onto the top, kind of turn my bowl as I go. And just after it all gets incorporated, I'm going to pour this into my pan and put it right into the oven. I want to get this in the oven as quickly as possible so that the ingredients don't have a chance to separate. So I have a nice homogeneous mixture. It's going into my pan that I've already buttered and prepared. And I'm scraping out my pan so all of that goodness doesn't go down the drain. Then I'm going into the oven right away. So into my 350-degree preheated oven. I'm going to set my timer for 30 minutes. And at the end of 30 minutes, I'm going to check, just like a normal cake, to see if it's done. If it's not done, I may have to put it in for another 5. So 350 degrees for 30 minutes. Questions? Thoughts? You can use amaretto in this cake. Takes a tablespoon of amaretto. I used almond extract instead. Almond extract tends to be a little bit stronger in the almond arena. So I use less. The directions you're going to get say you can use it 1 for 1. I like almond, but I didn't like that much almond the first time I made it. So.
How's everybody doing? Are your cakes going in the oven?
Do a little bit of cleanup. That's it for the first cake until it comes out of the oven. Once the cake is baked and comes out of the oven, you can, it has to cool in the pan. It has to cool completely in the pan. If you try to take it out of the pan too soon, it will collapse and you will just have a big old tasty mess. But it will not be pretty. They've already eaten your cake and it was yummy. Well, congratulations, Jane. I hope your cake turned out better than mine. So this is your cake, and like I said, put a toothpick in it to see if it's done. This one I made this morning. I did a disposable cake pan, and I actually had to put it into 2 because if I had put it all in 1, it would have overrun the pan. So insert a toothpick in the center. If it comes out without anything on it, it's done. Take it out, let it sit. Let it sit for hours until it's completely cooled. So this one is completely cooled, and I made it in a disposable pan, hoping that I could show you, if you didn't have a spring form pan, that you can take and cut a disposable pan off, or cut the edges of the disposable pan off and end up with a nice looking serving. You can serve it from the pan, so to speak. So if you don't have a spring form pan, it is an option. Or you can serve it directly from the pan, whatever floats your boat. I'm going to try to cut around this.
Diane, while you're cutting around, we had somebody ask, if you're not concerned about gluten, can you make it with regular flour?
That is a question I do not have an answer for. It is traditionally an almond cake.
Yeah.
So if I were looking to do something in the almond arena, I would look for a recipe made with regular flour. And this is really botching up the top of this cake. But that's the idea of using a disposable cake pan instead of a springform pan. Or you can just serve it right out of the pan, which is certainly an option that I think is probably a pretty good one, personally. So I'm going to put this on something so I can make a bigger mess. It's a very, very, very moist cake. And it will keep for a couple of days. You can store it at room temperature in an airtight container for 3 days, or freeze the slices for up to 2 months. If I knew that I was going to freeze it, I would not put the powdered sugar on top. It traditionally has the cross of Saint Iago, which is Saint James, Saint Iago, I-A-G-O in Spanish. And if you think about that, it means Santiago. That's how it got its name. And Saint James was the patron. He is the patron saint of Spain and pilgrims. And Iago is the spelling of James in Spanish. It's the name of and Santiago is the name of the ancient city where the cathedral was founded in his honor. One of the first disciples was one of the first disciples called by Jesus, and he and his brother were mending fishing nets. He is buried in the tomb at Santiago de Compostela, located in northern Spain. And a patron saint in the Catholic tradition is considered to be a defender of a specific group of people or nation. And the feast day of St. James the Greater is July 25th and is widely celebrated, especially in Santiago de Compostela. So if you have any interest in any of that, sometimes you will see that he's carrying seashells on a gourd. But this is the cross. You can look it up on the internet, and I believe we sent it to you as a template. You can just cut it out, lay it on top of the cake, and then powdered sugar over it. It'll just take a couple of tablespoons of powdered sugar on top. And this powdered sugar can hide a lot of issues with your cake too. If you don't want everybody to see the big cracks that I left in the top of this, I'll just cover it up with powdered sugar. It's not traditional to serve this with fruit, but it would go well with the berries, especially I think raspberries would go really well with it. And coffee. If you drink coffee or hot tea, be a great treat for that. So I had my cross template laying there. It's all covered in powdered sugar right now. So I'm going to very carefully lift it to reveal the cross that's left. And that would be your garnish or decoration. And then I would move that to a better serving platter than this blue tray. Do you have to do that? No, it's your cake at this point. You can do whatever you wish. We're going to see what the difference is in appearance. This one will be much thinner only because it was made in a cake pan as opposed to a springform pan. It's probably a very generous piece. It's a very, very, very moist cake. So this is the one I made last night that the ingredients separated. This is the one I made this morning where the ingredients did not separate. So slight difference in color. Part of that has a little bit to do with the almond flour, but I really think it's because of the separation of ingredients. And if you see this, you'll see the definite dark on the bottom and lighter on the top. because of the separation of ingredients before they started to bake. So, questions? Comments? All right, we'll do a little bit of cleanup here, and then we're going to make our spinach chickpea dish. This is the difference between the blanched almond flour and the almond flour made with the skin on. So two different types. This makes a little bit better cake. It's a little less dense. This one packs down a little more and is more dense in the cake. So after 30 minutes, like I said, we're going to check to see if it's done. If it's not done, we're going to put it in the oven. We're going to allow our cake to cool completely in the pan. And then transfer it to a serving dish. Sprinkle it with powdered sugar using a template, and then enjoy it. So you probably, if you're going to make this, you'll probably want to make it the day before you serve it, I would think, just to give it time to cool completely and give you a chance to get it decorated if you want to. So next up, you're going to need your skillet and a stove. This recipe is going to go together really fast. I promise, really, really fast. And I'm going to turn my camera so it goes over there. You don't need a lid, but you will need some type of rubber scraper or a stirring spoon. This you're going to need oil of some type, olive oil, canola oil, some type of oil. You need a chickpeas, can of chickpeas. Need an onion, a small onion, and a small onion is about the size of a lemon. And it makes about 1/2 cup of chopped onion. So we're going to do that. Need 1/2 cup of tomato sauce. 4 cloves of garlic, or their equivalent if you use like charred garlic. That'll be 4 teaspoons of garlic or 4 cloves of garlic. 1/4 cup of raisins. Called for salt, pepper, smoked paprika, and cumin. And I just put mine all together in a little bowl. Oh, and the spinach. Forgot about the spinach. Thawed, drained spinach. It doesn't have to be squeezed dry, just drained. Get a lot of that water off. And if you don't, it's probably going to work out just fine. I actually had to add water earlier today to the one that I made. So let's start by washing our hands, because I've been handling other stuff. You're going to think that's all I ever do is wash my hands. We're going to peel and mince our 4 cloves of garlic. Oh, you'll need a cutting board. Buried over here. Threw a bunch of stuff on it. If you use a garlic press, you don't have to peel them. You can just put the cloves right into the garlic press. And squeeze it. I know some people who are challenged strength-wise to be able to do this, but garlic presses can be handy. Or you can peel it and chop it with a knife, or you can peel them and grate them on your zester or the fine holes of a grater. If you grate it on this, it will give you a very fine paste of garlic. So we can use a garlic press. We can lay it on the cutting board. I hit it with the side of the knife. And then take off the outer peel. And chop. My garlic press was so much quicker, wasn't it? But it's just another gadget to have in the kitchen if you don't use it that much.
Diane,
Yes, ma'am.
excuse me. Does the spinach have to be 10 ounces? Mine was 12, so do I need to take?
Nope. You're fine. 12's good.
Okay.
They come on all different. Manufacturers are changing everything these days. What used to be a 16-ounce can is now like 14.75. Same thing with frozen vegetables, it seems like. So I'm just going to chop these. Somebody said they love their garlic press. Yes, it helps keep your hands from stinking. You're very true. If you get garlic on your hands and you want to get it off and you have a stainless steel sink, just rub your hands on the stainless steel sink and it should take the garlic smell away. That's your Jeopardy trivia for the night. And I should have put a damp paper towel under my cutting board to keep it from moving around. The other thing you need to avoid doing is scraping the cutting edge of your knife along the cutting board. It will dull the knife really fast. So I usually turn it over and scrape with the backside, or there are food scrapers that you can get to help avoid dulling your knife so quickly. I have to wash my hands after that. That's 4 cloves of garlic chopped or minced. Then we went to a small onion, and we're going to peel and dice the small onion. And we're going to get about 1/2 cup out of that. It's all relative. I'm going to cut the ends off of my onion. Everybody has their own method of chopping onions. Just don't chop your finger. That's my lesson on it. Take off the peel. I'm going to cut off that. I have a bad part in my onion, so I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to cut my onion in half, and I'm going to get a flat side so I can slice down. And I tend to hold my onion together with my fingers without cutting my fingers. Although it's not going so well right now, it's sticking to the knife. And then I chop the other way. And I have another half to do. And some of you may have gadgets for chopping, and that's wonderful. I find the more gadgets I have, the more I have to clean and store. So with a knife, all I have to do is clean the knife and put it in the cabinet. And we should be done with our knife at this point. And you can rinse your hands or wash your hands. Get rid of the vegetables that are on them. And then we're going to drain and rinse our can of garbanzo beans. So before I open any can, I wipe the top of it off with a damp paper towel to get rid of any dirt that may be on it from the grocery store. Because there could be dust or anything, and I really don't want that in my food. So I'm just going to open this really fast. And I'm going to pour it into my colander over the sink to drain off that liquid. And I'll give them a quick rinse. It's not bad to eat the liquid from canned beans. If you rinse them, you can get rid of some of the sodium that's in those. And it also helps get rid of any of the gas producing elements that are in the beans. So if you have problems with beans and gas, rinsing them may help control that some. And while I'm at it, I'm going to measure 1/2 cup of my tomato sauce out into a measuring cup. We do use liquid measuring cups when we measure liquids, so tomato sauce is a liquid. Again, I wiped off the top with a paper towel. So I want 1/2 cup of tomato sauce. And I think I sent you directions. I saw where there was a shortage of tomato sauce. So I sent you directions on how to make it with pureed tomato, by pureeing tomatoes if you wanted to. Let's see. All right, now we're ready to start cooking. So I'm going to turn my burner on medium high. Actually, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of oil to it first. And turn on my burner. Turn my camera so you can see that. I'm going to wait for my oil to heat up some. It doesn't have to be fried food hot, but it does need to be hot. It will start to shimmer. So I'm heating about a tablespoon of oil on medium heat in a large skillet. And I'm going to, mine's starting to shimmer a little bit. I'm going to add my onion. And if you have more than 1/2 cup, it's fine. If you did not use your whole onion, that's okay too. One of the easiest things to do after I chop onion and I have some left is I just put it up in the freezer. If I know I'm not going to use it anytime soon, I will stick it up in the freezer and that way it's ready to go. You don't have to blanch onions. They'll work for you. They'll work in cooked items, sloppy joes, chili, those types of things without any issues once they come out of the freezer. And I usually just put mine in a freezer safe container. It's usually a resealable bag, and I will smash it with my hand to break the onions apart so I can measure out what I need. And I just throw the frozen onions right into the dish because usually I'm cooking chili or something and they're going to cook down just fine. So we're going to let these onions cook for a little bit. We don't want them brown, but we do want them soft. We're hoping to get them translucent, which means I should be able to, looks like I can kind of see through them. So garbanzo beans are really good for you. They're a good source of protein. Certainly help extend other items. And it's something, hummus is made from garbanzo beans, typically traditional hummus. We make hummus out of everything now, but good source of fiber, got some iron, got some good vitamins. So this recipe in the big picture of life is really healthy, even if you didn't want to hear that. It still is. If I don't put my spinach over here, I'll forget to put it in. I'm going to just move these around a little bit just to keep them from browning on one side. As I said before, this recipe, you can serve it as a tapo, which is if you go to a tapo bar, there's small servings. It's called small plates, and you can get a variety of tapas, and that can be a whole meal, it can be an appetizer. You can use it as a side dish if you had chicken or salmon or something like that. This would make a great side dish. Or you can just go ahead and add either chicken or vegetable broth and make it into a stew. So it's quite a versatile recipe. Once you see it in the end, you'll see. Onions are good for you. I think it's one of those ingredients that we forget about how healthy they are or how they can contribute to our overall eating pattern. Certainly it provides some good nutrients, and they also add a lot of flavor to different dishes. Garlic, they say if you let garlic after you chop it, if you let it sit for 10 minutes, you get more of the phytochemicals out of it. So usually if you chop your garlic and let it sit for a little while, you're going to get better nutritional value out of it. I'm going to go ahead and put my garlic in. I'm going to let it cook. I certainly don't want it to burn, but I do want it to get that raw garlic flavor off of it. And it'll cook for maybe a minute or so. Not can't put my flip chart cards are, am I? So there's my my garlic and my onion in the pan. Using as an appetizer or a tapa, you can put it on toasted bread. Oh, what do you call those? It'll come to me.
No,
Yeah, trying to think of the real name.
I know, me too.
Not coming to me at the moment. So I'm going to add my half of a cup of tomato sauce, which is also going to help me deglaze that pan a little bit. I was getting a little bit of brown on the bottom of it, which is fine. That's good flavor. But the acid in these tomatoes will pull that right up. And the liquid. Stir that around. Going to add my spinach, which I thawed and I put in a colander to drain. I pressed it a little bit, but I didn't worry about it. I didn't try to get it completely if I were making it with bread or something like that, I'd try to get as much liquid out of it as possible. Stir that in. I'm going to add a teaspoon of cumin, ground cumin, gives it a little bit of heat. 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground pepper. About 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and you may need to add more salt when you get this done. And a teaspoon of ground smoked paprika. And if you did not find smoked paprika, paprika is fine too. Going to add that in. And I'm going to turn my burner down. I think I'm going to have to add some water to this. And then I'm going to add my drained, rinsed garbanzo beans. When I add those, I'm going to mash them up a little bit. I'm going to grab a little bit of water. This mine is really dry. And I want those garbanzo beans to get warm. So that's maybe a tablespoon or two of water. It can cook off. If I had broth, I could add broth to it just to add more flavor. I did find earlier, I added a little bit more salt than the recipe originally called for. And then we're going to add a 1/4 cup of raisins. So we're just using regular raisins tonight. We don't have to buy the white raisins or anything. They're all stuck together in this bag. The bag o' raisins. Just going to stir those in, and that's quite a traditional thing, to add raisins to this dish. And you probably won't even know they're in there once you get it all mixed up. And we're just going to cook this until it's hot all the way through. And I can smell my smoked paprika. I don't know if that's what you used, but I did have some here at the office. So that's what I used in this dish. Oh, there goes my cake timer. How about that for perfection, huh?
Mhm.
So I just toasted a baguette. I just put it under the broiler and toasted it lightly. And to serve this, I can serve it on this. I would spoon it out and serve it on top. And probably one of those would be more of a tapas serving than two. But I had 2 pieces of bread, so easy peasy. Of course, I should have tasted it before I put it on the bread, but that's my normal method. I usually don't taste things as much as I should. And again, you can make it into a stew by adding just chicken broth or vegetable broth. And salud means cheers. So here it would be as a side dish. If somebody just wanted to serve it alongside some meat or fish of some type. I made this one earlier. So that's it. Are there questions, comments?
Haven't seen any in the chat. How are we doing on cooking?
Check on my cake.
Everybody else's cakes should be about coming out too. Our timers should be going off. One of my favorite things when I was in Spain was having tapas because they were very small and you could have multiple and you got to taste a little bit of everything. So I like the small serving sizes that you could go into a tapa bar
And just enjoy, yeah.
and just enjoy.
I would serve it hot and or warm, like room temperature. I don't know that I would serve this cold. Yeah, each bar has its specialty. And a lot of times in Spain, well, in Spain, as a general rule, dinner doesn't start until 10 p.m. So it's definitely a change of pace from.
And nothing's open at normal dinner time.
Yeah, it's definitely the change of pace from what we might be used to here in America. But it's wonderful to go and visit and see and taste and touch and feel and experience. And I remember I don't speak Spanish. I know a few words, but I certainly don't speak Spanish. And Jorge sent us to get some breakfast one morning and he told us what to get. He wrote it out on a piece of paper, told us how to get to the bakery. So we walked into the bakery and handed him the sheet of paper because we had no idea how to ask for anything.
Yeah.
So they're very we were in Barcelona, so very accommodating, very interesting. So somebody's talking about potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Serrano ham. Yeah. And then there's Iberia. Oh, I can't remember the name of it.
I won't, can I remember sangrias?
Oh, well, priorities, right?
Yeah. It's like,
Serrano Iberico ham is a traditional choice. So I don't know that we can find that around here. I've not really looked for different types of ham in this area, but it's certainly something to kind of take a look at and see what's available around. So the publication you're going to get has a Spanish chicken and chorizo stew recipe, a paella recipe, a gazpacho recipe, which they made in Trimble County tonight or enjoyed in Trimble County. I hope it was good. A salad, croquettes,
Okay, Trimble, let's go.
and garlic shrimp, and a Spanish omelet, which is a potato and egg dish. So Costco had it in Louisville, the Serrano ham. Great. And Costco, everybody talks about Costco.
I know. I went there
Finley
for the
Market?
first time a few weeks ago.
Finley Market might have some different types. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not a ham eater, so I don't normally shop around for those types of things, but
Me either.
always something to look for. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully, if you cooked along, it was a success for you. And my cake is not done. I just looked at it and it is definitely not done yet. So I put it on for another 5 minutes. Once it comes out, it will sit here all night. I'm not going to touch it because if I do, it's going to collapse. And I know that. So
And remember, as you finish your product, take pictures of it, send it to me in the email. As long as you send it to me, it means I have permission to post it. So if you don't want me to post it, don't send it. But we like to see finished products. We like to see what you prepared, what you had finished in your kitchen. We would like to see how your cake turned out. Like to hear your comments on how you enjoyed the recipes and any other recipes you might try in the handout as well.
Diane, as you were teaching and the question came up about substituting almond flour with all-purpose flour. And as I was trying to do a bit of research, it was a little bit all over the place, but the one site that I think was pretty reputable said that it's a different moisture content, so it's going to change the recipe. So that would be a consideration.
usually if you're going to use almond flour for all purpose, you use slightly less almond flour. And you have to remember that almond flour is very high in fat. So if you're going to do a substitution, you really have to take into account the fat content of the recipe also, because that almonds have fat in them, and whole wheat flour, if it has any, it's not a whole lot. So it's not a 1-for-1 substitution. I'm not saying it's not going to work. I'm just saying you need to do a little research. And